Ethan Cole had never seen a sky like this before. It was deep blue, mixed with silver, and thin lines of light moved slowly across it like rivers floating in the air. The planet Valara was quiet that morning, except for the gentle hum of wind moving through crystal-shaped trees. Ethan stood near the edge of the landing site, checking his scanner and trying to understand the strange energy coming from the ground. He was part of Earth's peace, mission and engineer, not a soldier. His job was simple: help rebuild the energy. Towers destroyed during the short conflict between humans and Valarans. The war had ended 2 years ago, but peace was still fragile. The Valarans were careful around humans, and the humans were unsure if they were really forgiven. Ethan liked to work alone. Machines made sense to him. Wires, bolts, circuits, these things didn't lie or stare. But the Velaran city always made him feel like someone was watching. The people moved gracefully, their long robes whispering as they walked, and their eyes shone faintly, like they carried a bit of the moon inside them. That day, as he repaired a power node in the city square, he noticed a small group of young Velaran women passing by. They were talking in soft tones that sounded like music. Most of them looked away when they saw the human engineer except one. She stopped. Ethan felt her gaze before he even looked up. When he did, he saw her standing still among her friends. She had light skin with a soft silver tone and eyes the color of morning frost. There was something kind in her expression, something that made him pause without knowing why. Her friends whispered to her, giggling softly, but she didn't move. Then she said something in her language, clear enough for the translator device hanging near Ethan's neck to pick up. It blinked, processed the words, and repeated them in a mechanical English voice. "That's my husband." Ethan froze. God. The wrench in his hand almost slipped. He looked around, half expecting a hidden camera or a prank. Her friends gasped, covering their mouths, whispering louder now. The translator blinked again, confirming it hadn't made a mistake. "That's my husband," it repeated once more. He stood there speechless, staring at the strange young woman who had just changed the air around him. The others tugged at her sleeves, laughing nervously. But she only smiled faintly and kept her calm gaze on him. Ethan didn't know what to do. Should he correct her, laugh, pretend he hadn't heard? He chose the simplest option. He turned back to his tools and continued working, pretending he hadn't understood. But his heart wasn't calm anymore. After a while, the group walked away, their soft laughter fading into the distance. Ethan shook his head and whispered to himself, "Must be a translation error. Has to be." Still, he couldn't stop thinking about her eyes. That evening, Ethan sat in his small quarters overlooking the alien city. The walls shimmered faintly, alive with slow pulses of light that responded to emotion. His room was glowing with a calm blue, but inside his chest, everything felt tangled. He replayed the moment in his mind again and again. The translator wasn't wrong. It had repeated the phrase twice, and the way she had looked at him, there was no sign of confusion. Who was she? Why say that? He opened the mission logs on his tablet, hoping to distract himself. The peace project was going well. 12 towers repaired, power restored to half the city. The Velaran Council had thanked him personally. No matter how much he tried to focus on work, the image of that alien girl stayed. Her voice had carried something gentle, almost grateful. Later that night, he went out for a walk near the glowing gardens. The Velaran architecture always amazed him. No sharp corners, only curves, like everything was designed to flow with nature. While he walked, a group of young Velaran children ran past him, chasing tiny floating lights. Some of the adults smiled politely, others avoided eye contact. But everywhere he went, Ethan felt whispers following him. People looking, murmuring softly. At first, he thought it was normal curiosity toward a human, but then he caught a few phrases being translated faintly by the device on his belt. Is he the one? The claimed one? Her husband? He frowned. Something was wrong. When he returned to his quarters, his team's communications officer, Marla, was waiting outside his door. "You've started rumors," she said with a smirk. Ethan blinked. "What?" "Apparently a Velaran girl told half the city that you're her bonded partner." The translators went wild trying to interpret it. She laughed lightly. You sure you didn't propose without realizing it? Funny, he muttered. It was a misunderstanding. She said something and her language translator messed it up. Marla shrugged. Maybe. But word spreads fast here. You might want to stay out of public view until the council clears it up. Ethan sighed, rubbing his forehead. Great, my first alien rumor. But deep inside, he wasn't laughing. The next day, the situation grew stranger. 2 Velaran guards arrived at his quarters, bowing politely. Engineer Colone said, his English perfect but his tone formal. The council requests your presence. There is a matter concerning A. Ethan had no idea what that meant. But he followed them through the shining halls toward the grand dome where the council met. The place was breathtaking, columns of crystal reaching into the sky, a faint music drifting through the air as if the walls themselves were alive. Inside, several Velaran elders sat in a circle. And there she was, the same girl from yesterday, standing calmly before them. Her hands folded in front of her. When she saw Ethan enter, her expression softened. Ethan Cole of Earth, one elder began. This young woman, Sirai of Valara, has spoken a claim upon you. She says you saved her life during the war years ago. Ethan blinked in shock. Saved her? I don't even know her. Sirai stepped forward slightly, her voice quiet but firm. You were there, at the village, near the southern ridge. The humans attacked by mistake. Fire, smoke, fear everywhere. You carried a child out of the ruins. That child was me. He froze. The memory hit him like wind through an open door. Yes, he remembered the mission. He had been repairing a damaged transport when he found a small alien child trapped under broken glass and smoke. He had pulled her out, carried her to the medic, and never saw her again. That was you, he whispered. She nodded, eyes shining. You saved my life. And on Valara, when one life saves another, their souls are tied. You are my chosen one. The elders murmured in agreement, or where Ethan couldn't tell. His mind spun. Wait, he said slowly. I didn't know about any of your customs. I was just helping. Sirai smiled softly. A true bond does not need knowledge, only kindness. The translator repeated her words in English. But somehow they sounded even deeper. The council thanked him for his service and said they would discuss what to do next. Sirai bowed to him before leaving the hall. When she passed by, she whispered, Do not fear. I will explain everything soon. Ethan stood alone in the giant hall, still unsure if he was dreaming. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking. About her, about the little girl he had carried years ago, now grown and radiant, speaking of bonds and souls. The next morning, he returned to his worksite early, hoping to clear his thoughts. But when he looked up, he saw her again standing near the edge of the square waiting. She held a small crystal flower in her hand, glowing faintly. I wanted to thank you, she said quietly. Not for saving me long ago, but for coming here. My people do not understand humans, but I do. You are not cruel as they think. Ethan hesitated, unsure how to respond. You don't even know me. She smiled. I remember your eyes. You looked at me with care when everyone else ran. That is enough. He tried to laugh it off, but her calmness made him speechless. The translator wasn't needed anymore. He understood her tone, her meaning, even without words. As she left, she turned once more and said softly, One day you will understand why I said those words. Ethan watched her go, the crystal flower still glowing faintly in his hand. Around him, the alien city shimmered like a dream. He didn't know what would happen next, but deep inside, he felt something awaken. Something human, and yet far greater than he could explain. And somewhere behind him, the whisper began again. Passing from one Velaran to another, the human she claimed has returned. Ethan didn't know what to feel the next morning. Everything on Valara looked the same, the bright sky, the silver-blue clouds, the singing trees, but something had changed inside him. Since meeting Sarai again, he couldn't shake the thought of her words. Her calm face, her soft voice, the certainty with which she said, You are my chosen one. He tried to focus on his work, fixing the damaged power circuits near the Crystal River. But his hands kept slowing down, his thoughts wandering to her. The engineers working nearby noticed his distraction but said nothing. They had all heard the rumors. Every time Ethan passed a group of Velerans, he caught whispers in their gentle language. His translator didn't even need to repeat them anymore. He already knew what they were saying. By afternoon, a message came from the council. He was requested to attend another meeting. His stomach tightened. He cleaned his hands, took a deep breath, and made his way to the great dome. The council hall shimmered with soft light again. Sarai was already there, waiting beside the elders. Her hair glowed faintly under the pale sunbeams, and her eyes followed Ethan with quiet warmth.
Oh.
She bowed politely when he entered. The council leader, an older Veleran named Escher, spoke first. "Engineer Cole," he began, "Sarai's claim has caused many questions among our people. Our customs are sacred, but this is the first time such a bond has been spoken between a human and a Veleran. We must understand the meaning before we decide its truth." Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand, sir. Meant no offense to her or your customs. I was only doing what any human would, helping someone in danger." Escher's expression remained calm. And yet that simple act may have joined two souls. Sarai stepped forward. "Escher, the bond cannot be denied. My spirit knows his. He saved me when the fire fell, when I could not breathe. I saw him again now, and my heart recognized him. That is truth." Ethan looked at her, caught between confusion and wonder. She wasn't just repeating tradition. She truly believed every word. One of the other elders, a tall woman with gold markings on her hands, spoke. "Sarai, do you understand what you ask? A soul bond is not a story, it is a union that ties two fates together. If the human accepts, you are bound. If he rejects it, the bond fades, but both will carry the memory." Sarai nodded. "I understand." The hall grew quiet. Everyone waited for Ethan's answer. His voice came slowly, careful and honest. "I don't know what to say. Where I come from, things like this, they don't happen, but I do remember saving you. I don't regret it." Sarai smiled softly, her eyes glowing faintly.
That is enough.
The elders looked at one another, speaking in low tones. Finally, Escher said, "Until we decide, both of you will remain under observation. The human and Sarai shall meet and learn about each other's customs. The council will decide after the ceremony of Bond's next cycle."
Oh.
Ethan was surprised. "You want us to spend time together?" Escher nodded. "If a bond truly exists, it will show itself." Over the next few days, Ethan and Sarai met often. They walked through the glowing gardens and the wide markets of the Veleran capital. She showed him the floating gardens that drifted over the river currents, where soft blue flowers opened only when someone smiled near them. In return, Ethan told her about Earth's blue oceans, green forests, and cities filled with light. Sarai listened with deep curiosity. "Your world sounds loud," she said one evening, laughing softly. "So much noise, so many hearts rushing." "It is," Ethan said. "But sometimes in that noise you find peace. People are the same, even when they look different." She nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, hearts are not bound by shape." They laughed together, their words easy and calm. Over time, the awkwardness faded. Ethan realized that he enjoyed her company more than he expected. She was gentle, but not weak. She spoke slowly, but each word carried meaning. And when she looked at him, it felt like she saw beyond the surface, like she understood something about him he couldn't explain. One day, while they sat near the crystal lake, Sarai reached out and touched the small flower she had given him days ago. It still glowed faintly, though it should have faded by now. "The flower responds to emotion," she explained softly. "It still shines because your heart remembers." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe it's broken." "Shh," she tilted her head. "Or maybe it is honest." He didn't answer, but the warmth in his chest deepened. As the days turned into weeks, the council's discussions continued. Some elders feared that a union between human and Veleran would cause confusion or even disrespect their traditions. Others saw it as a sign of hope, a bridge between two species once divided by fear. Marla, Ethan's team officer, often teased him about it. "You've become a celebrity," she said one morning. "Half the city wants to know what you'll do at the ceremony." Ethan sighed. I don't even know myself. She smiled knowingly. Well, I've seen the way you look at her. Maybe your heart already knows. He didn't argue. That evening, as he returned from work, he found Sci-Fi waiting outside his quarters. The sunset cast soft golden light over her face. Ethan, she said gently, the ceremony of bonds will be in 2 days. The council will ask again if you accept or deny the claim. He looked at her, unsure how to reply. And if I deny it? Then the bond fades, she said softly. But the memory stays with us both. I will not be angry. I will still be thankful. And if I accept? He asked quietly. Then your soul will be joined with mine. It does not mean control or ownership. It means we promise to protect each other, no matter the world. Ethan took a long breath. That's a big promise, she smiled gently. You've already kept it once, long ago. Couldn't find words after that. The next day was calm but heavy with expectation. Everyone in the city seemed to know about the upcoming event. Valeran children made small lanterns to float on the rivers. Humans from the peace team were invited to watch. The ceremony of bonds wasn't just a ritual anymore. It had become a moment of history. Ethan spent most of the morning alone, walking near the gardens. He thought about Earth, about his quiet apartment, his unfinished projects, the loneliness he had carried for years. He remembered the war, the smoke, the faces of people he couldn't save. Then he thought of Sci-Fi, her calm eyes, her steady voice saying, You are my chosen one. It didn't feel strange anymore. It felt right. As the twin moons rose above Valara, the city began to glow with soft blue light. The air shimmered with gentle music as people gathered near the central plaza where the ceremony would take place. Ethan arrived in his formal Earth uniform, feeling both nervous and calm at once. Sci-Fi was already there, wearing a flowing white robe that sparkled like mist. She looked at him and smiled. You came. Of course, he said quietly. I couldn't miss it. When the drums began, silence fell across the plaza. The council stood on the high platform, their robes glowing under the moonlight. Escher raised his hand. Tonight, he announced, 2 souls stand before us, one of Earth, one of Valara. Let the truth of their hearts be shown. Sci-Fi stepped forward first. My heart remembers his kindness. My soul knows his light. I offer my bond freely. Then the council turned to Ethan. Every eye in the plaza was on him. He felt his pulse in his ears. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. Then, slowly, he looked at Sci-Fi, the girl he had saved years ago, who had crossed worlds to thank him, who had taught him that connection was more than words. He smiled faintly and said, I don't know what the future will be, but I know I don't want this bond to fade. So yes, I accept. The crowd gasped softly. A warm light spread around them, glowing from the ground like ripples in water. It wrapped around Ethan and Sci-Fi, joining their reflections in the shimmering air. The ceremony bells rang, and the council bowed their heads. Escher's voice echoed gently. The bond is true. As the light faded, Sci-Fi looked at Ethan with shining eyes. Now you understand? She whispered. He nodded, smiling softly. Yeah, I think I do. That night, the city celebrated not with noise, but with light and peace. Humans and Valarans walked together, laughing, sharing stories. For the first time in generations, there was no fear between them. Ethan stood beside Sci-Fi on the balcony of the council hall, watching the glowing rivers below. She looked at him, her voice calm and warm. When I said those words, that's my husband, I didn't mean ownership. It meant my heart had found its home. Ethan smiled, eyes soft with emotion. And maybe mine just found its reason. Under the twin moons of Valara, 2 different souls stood together, not as symbols of power, but as proof that even across the stars, kindness could grow into something eternal. The night after the ceremony was calm and bright. The sky above Valara shimmered with twin moons and slow waves of glowing clouds. The people of the city were still celebrating, lighting floating lanterns that drifted high into the air like stars. Ethan stood quietly on the balcony outside his quarters, watching the lights fade into the horizon. Everything felt unreal. A few weeks ago, he had come to this world just to repair machines. Now, he was part of a legend, the first human ever to be bonded to a Velaran. The idea still made him nervous. Yet, when he remembered Saraya's soft voice saying, "Now you understand," all the fear in him melted into peace. He turned as the door opened behind him. Sarai stepped into the balcony, her white robe flowing lightly in the wind. She smiled when she saw him, her silver blue eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You should rest," she said gently. "Tomorrow will be long. Many people will want to meet you." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." "You will be," she replied softly. "They will see what I see." He looked at her for a long moment. "And what do you see, Sarai?" Her voice was calm, almost like music. A human who didn't turn away when the world was falling. A man who gave light when everything was dark. Ethan felt his chest tighten, but in a good way. He didn't know what to say, so he just smiled. "You always have the right words," he murmured. "I only speak what I feel," she said. They stood there together, watching the glowing city below them, neither speaking for a while. The silence was peaceful. It wasn't empty. It was full of quiet understanding. The next morning came with a rush of activity. Word of the bonded pair had spread across the planet. Humans and Velerans gathered near the council hall to witness the first sunrise of the new era. The council had decided to hold a public meeting to declare peace officially between both species. When Ethan arrived with Sarai beside him, the crowd erupted in cheers and melodic chants. The Velerans sang in their soft language, voices blending like a wave of sound. The humans clapped and smiled, recording everything on their small devices. Escher, the council leader, raised his hands for silence. "Today," he said, his voice echoing through the air, "we do not see human or Veleran. We see two lives that proved compassion is stronger than fear. Let this bond be our path to peace." Ethan listened quietly. He wasn't used to being in the center of attention. Yet as he looked at the faces around him, both alien and human, he felt a strange pride. Maybe this was what the universe needed. Not more weapons or borders, but simple understanding. Sarai stood beside him, calm as ever. When the crowd cheered again, she reached out and gently took his hand. For a moment, everything faded. The noise, the colors, the lights. It was just them standing together under the shining sky. After the ceremony, things changed quickly. Humans were now allowed to walk freely in the inner cities. Veleran scientists began sharing knowledge with Earth engineers. Every day, Ethan's name was mentioned in new reports. But fame wasn't something he wanted. He preferred working quietly, fixing things, spending time with Sarai. She often visited him at the repair stations, watching curiously as he worked. "You like machines?" she said one day, sitting nearby as he repaired a damaged energy cell. He smiled. "Machines are honest. If something is broken, they show it. No secrets, no lies, just wires and circuits." Sarai tilted her head. "But hearts are not like that. They hide their broken parts." He looked at her, surprised by the truth in her words. "Maybe that's why people are harder to fix." She smiled. "That's why kindness matters." Their days followed a gentle rhythm work, learning, talking, walking beneath the glowing trees at dusk. Ethan began to understand her people more deeply. The Velerans didn't fight for power. They fought for harmony. They believed every being had a melody, and peace came when those melodies aligned. One evening, Sarai took him to a high mountain outside the city. The place was silent, surrounded by silver mist. "This is the Echo Ridge," she said softly. "Here, when two souls are truly bonded, their voices can be heard by the stars." Ethan laughed quietly. "You believe that?" Sarai smiled faintly. "Belief is not always about proof. It's about hope." He looked at her, his heart steady. "Then let's give the stars something to remember." She closed her eyes, and together they spoke softly words of gratitude. Not vows, just simple thanks for finding each other across worlds. When they finished, the mist above them shimmered slightly. The stars seemed to hum faintly, echoing their voices. Ethan didn't know if it was real, but it didn't matter. He felt it in his chest, the truth of their bond. But peace never comes without questions. In the weeks that followed, some humans back on Earth began to question Ethan's decision. Messages arrived from officials full of complicated words about diplomatic caution and cultural sensitivity. They wanted to know if his bond with Sci was truly by choice. Ethan read one of the messages aloud, sighing. "They think I'm under some kind of alien spell," he said with a half-smile. Sci's expression softened. "Do they not understand love?" "Sometimes," Ethan replied quietly. "People fear what they don't understand." She walked closer, her voice calm but steady. "And we will teach them." "Not with speeches, but with how we live." He nodded slowly. "You really believe we can change their minds?" Her smile was small but sure. "You changed mine once when I was a scared child. You didn't even know my name, yet you gave me your strength. If that could happen once, it can happen again." Her faith gave him courage. Together, they decided to send a message back to Earth One that spoke not of politics, but of hope. Ethan stood before the holographic camera with Sci by his side. His words were simple. "We were once strangers. I saved her life, and she saved mine in return. Not with power, but with understanding. If two souls from different worlds can find peace, maybe our worlds can too." The message spread faster than he expected. People on Earth began talking not about danger, but about connection. News stations showed images of Ethan and Sci walking hand in hand beneath Valara's twin moons. Children drew pictures of humans and Velarans together. Slowly, the fear began to fade. Months passed. Life found a new balance. Ethan continued his engineering work, now helping build a shared power network between Earth and Valara. Sci became a voice for cultural harmony, teaching both species about empathy and unity. One evening, as they walked by the river where they first met, Sci stopped and smiled softly. "Do you remember the day I said those words?"
Oh.
she asked. Ethan laughed lightly. "How could I forget? You nearly gave me a heart attack." She smiled wider. "You look so confused." "My friends laughed at me for days. And now," he asked gently. "Now they say I was right," she replied, eyes warm. "Because sometimes the heart sees before the mind understands." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "When I came here, I thought I'd be fixing machines. I didn't know I'd end up fixing hearts." Sci reached for his hand. "And I didn't know that saving me would lead to saving our worlds." They stood together, the gentle glow of the river lighting their faces. The air smelled faintly of crystal rain. Around them, the city hummed with quiet life humans and Velarans working, laughing, building together. Years later, when peace between both species became strong and lasting, children on both worlds learned the story of the human engineer and the alien girl who once said, "That's my husband." They didn't learn it as a legend of war or heroism, but as a tale of kindness. Teachers told them that peace began with one act of courage, one gentle choice, one moment of trust between hearts that looked nothing alike, and sometimes, on quiet nights when the moons of Valara shone bright, people claimed they could still hear the faint echo of two voices on the wind, human and Velaran speaking softly together. No one ever proved it was real, but no one ever wanted to, because everyone believed that somewhere beyond the stars, two souls still watched over them, reminding the universe that even across light years, love is the strongest bridge of all.